Hello, today is June 30th. I just thought I'd show you around in the garden. A lot of changes have taken place since the last time I recorded anything. I did have all of my heirloom tomatoes growing in here, but most of them have perished from the extreme heat and humidity and bugs and rain. I still have a few plants that have survived, and clearly these are the winners when it comes to disease resistance. This one here is the Thessalonicai, and I've still got both of my Thessalonicai plants growing, and they even have some new growth and healthy leaves and even some flower blossoms. And this one actually was still producing fruit. I had a really nice tomato out here last night, and I thought I'd leave it one more day and pick it today, and something got it overnight. So it's half of it's gone, but it was actually a really nice sized, good looking tomato yesterday. I'll show you the back of it because it was a whole tomato like that. I'll pick this one before it starts turning red. That's the key. Once it's this hot outside, the tomatoes don't ripen well out here, and then if they do stay out here, like this one, I should have picked it, and it's just, I think this is just from the weather being so harsh. It's been raining a lot. See, these I should have picked sooner. This one, it looks good, but then if you turn it, it's got like this grossness there. So I'll go ahead and pick this one before it succumbs to any blemishes. But this one here is my Martino's Roma, and it's doing really good. Well, I wouldn't say really good. They're all getting, you know, diseased leaves and everything, and they're not producing as much, but they are still hanging on, and they still have some green healthy leaves, and it's got a few little flower blossoms that are going to start there. So I'm gonna just wait and see. Maybe they will produce a few more tomatoes. Really, I'm pretty impressed with both of these varieties, because I really expected all of my tomatoes to be totally gone by the middle of June. Really, pretty much by the beginning of June, I expect tomatoes to decline and die, and not to make it much past the first couple weeks of June. That's when we start getting our heavy rains every day, and the fungus just goes wild because it's so hot and humid, and the leaves get rain on them. And oh, and then I have this one little, this is a Chadwick cherry plant that's still hanging on as well. So I still have 5 tomatoes left from my original batch of heirloom tomatoes that I started back in January. So Chadwick cherry, Thessalonicai, and Martino's Roma were the ones that held up the best to our Florida weather conditions. And I like those tomatoes all pretty well too. The Thessalonicai, I wasn't initially super impressed with the flavor. It just didn't have a lot of flavor, but compared to the store brands, the store-bought tomatoes, I think it actually is better, and I do like it. And it's just not, it's not super acidic, which is kind of nice for me because I have acid reflux. So it's a mild tasting tomato, but it produces well, and it holds up to our weather. And so I'll probably keep growing that one. And then also Martino's Roma was good, and definitely keep growing that one. And I liked the Chadwick cherry as well. I don't think it's my favorite cherry tomato I've ever had, but I like it pretty well, and I'll certainly keep it in the running and try it again. So anyway, that's all that's left of my big heirloom tomato plants. I'm trying an experiment. I've heard and read that cherry tomatoes can grow in the summer. So I've started some more, these are baby cherry tomato seeds, or seedlings. These are all just baby cherry tomatoes. I have I think 4 or 5 different varieties I'm going to try to grow this summer and just see if they survive. I don't have high hopes, but we'll see. We'll just see if they manage to, if any of them manage to grow and produce any tomatoes. So yeah, I think I have black cherry. This is black cherry tomatoes, and I have one just called large red cherry. I have a couple of kinds. This is one that I bought from, I just bought it online, and it's from Greece, so it's some Greek variety that I don't even know what it's called, but I just wanted to try something different. And I actually bought 2 different kinds from Greece. That's another one, and I don't know what it's called. But anyway, so we'll see how the cherry tomatoes do over the next couple of months, if they make it. And besides that, I just wanted to mention what else can you grow in the summer. I'm trying some different things. Well, for one thing, peppers are fine to grow during the summer. I started these in the spring, and they're doing great. Peppers, they like sun and they like heat, but I think they actually do better with a little bit of shade. So, oh, I also wanted to mention that I put my shade cloth up. I put that up about a month ago, and it really should have gone up sooner. I was just busy, but as soon as it starts to get up, like where we're getting days in the 90s, you know, 90 degree weather will scorch just about anything, including a person. So as soon as the days hit 90, that's when I think shade cloth should definitely go up, even for warm season vegetables. It's just too intense. The sun is too intense for anything. I've got my turmeric plants growing. They're tropical, so these were actually in these pots since last year, and they popped up about a month ago once it started raining, and once we got the warm weather, my turmeric came back. So, and then this is interesting. I'm trying some different tropical greens this summer. I've never grown any of these before. I tried last summer actually, and I didn't start them right. This year I started them in pots indoors just until I saw them sprout, and then I moved them outside on the porch for a while, and I didn't immediately expose them to the sun and the harsh elements, but once they got a little bigger, I did move them out into the sun, and they're actually doing great now. This is Malabar spinach, and these here are amaranth greens, and this is something called callaloo, green callaloo. And over here I have, this is New Zealand spinach. So I haven't really experimented with any of these yet as far as like cooking with them or eating them in salads. I'm hoping that they'll be able to replace spinach and lettuce during the summer when we can't grow lettuce and spinach. I've taken some nibbles of each of these, just plain, like not cooked and not with any dressing or anything. And I would say just from that little taste, this New Zealand spinach tasted probably the most like spinach out of all of these. And I would probably try to use it the way that you would use spinach. I might try to cook it in some meals, and I'm not a big fan of raw spinach, so I don't know that I would necessarily eat that raw, but you can if you like raw spinach. And then this callaloo, I think it's usually used in like soups. They use it in Caribbean cuisine, I've heard. I need to look up some recipes, and I think Willa wants to be in the video. So I'll have to look up some recipes. I tried it just plain and fresh, not cooked, and it's a tender leaf, but the flavor reminds me a little bit of like kale maybe, or collards, which I don't really love those raw. I would probably go ahead and try to cook it in a soup the way they do in the Caribbean. So I'm going to look up some recipes for that and try it in soups, or just try to cook with it and see how that goes, and use it kind of like I'd use kale or spinach or something in a cooked recipe. These amaranth greens I thought had the best flavor, just raw and like fresh. They didn't have a whole lot of flavor. They weren't like a harsh flavor. They were the closest thing to lettuce, I think, out of all of these things I tried. Wouldn't say they're exactly like lettuce, but I'm gonna try them in a salad and see if I can eat them that way, maybe with dressing. Maybe with dressing and other vegetables, they'll taste more like lettuce. At least I'm hoping. The Malabar spinach was my least favorite, at least raw. It had a kind of a, I don't know how to put it, like a harsher taste. And it may be better cooked. I know some people say that they prefer it cooked. So I'll have to try cooking it like spinach and see if, maybe if I cook it with some other stuff, if that'll cover up the flavor. But it just had like a really, I don't know, like green flavor or something. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe a little bitter. So I'll experiment with it some more, but so far it's not my favorite, which is unfortunate because, as you can see, it's the one that's growing the best, and it's just taken off and it's growing up its little trellis thing. But I mean, all of these are really actually growing pretty well, so at least they can tolerate the heat. And if I even like one or two of these and I can replace some of the winter greens in my diet with these tropical summer greens, I'll be happy if any of them work out. So anyway, what else have I got? Oh, and then sweet potatoes is another thing you can grow in the summer here. Got a lot of sweet potatoes growing. This is just one batch. I've got a bunch of bags of it out here. I grow them both in the ground and in these fabric pots. And the thing I like about the fabric pots, well, a couple of things. For one, you can move them around, but also because when you grow sweet potatoes in the ground, the vines go out all over the place and they try to start new plants, which isn't really good. You actually want the original main roots to grow, and if you let the vines come out and start new plants, it'll take the nutrients away from the main roots, and the potatoes won't get as big. So you have to pay more attention to where the vines are going, and when they're not in a pot, it's hard to figure out where the main root is. And so when you go to dig up the sweet potatoes that are in the ground, you just have to dig and try to figure out where the actual sweet potatoes are. If you've got them in a pot, it's quite obvious where the sweet potato is. It's going to be right there in the pot where you planted it, so they can't like escape from you and hide in the dirt. But I do have a couple of raised beds out front that have sweet potatoes, and I also have more fabric pots out front with more sweet potatoes. So I do like sweet potatoes, and I'm growing a lot of different varieties. I've actually heard that you can eat I know people that do eat the leaves of sweet potatoes. I have not tried that yet. I'll have to try that too, and maybe mix it with some of my other tropical greens and see how that is in a salad. But sweet potatoes love the heat. They can grow all summer long. This is their season, so and I do love them. I've got a lot of different varieties growing. So I will put a link to in my description to these fabric pots. I do like them. I use them. I use 10-gallon fabric pots for sweet potatoes, and I use 5 and 7-gallon fabric pots for tomatoes, and like 3 and 5-gallon pots for peppers. So also I've got some basil growing. This is some sort of bean that I got, or like a pea, I'm not sure what it is. Someone gave it to me at a seed swap, so I just stuck it in the ground to see if it would grow. This is some sort of bean or pea, I don't know what it is. And then out here I've got, this is yard-long beans. They will turn into vines like this, and I'm hoping they're going to grow up the side of this trellis here and give us some shade in here, because this is the south side of the garden and it gets so much sun through here. And I mean, I do have the shade cloth, but I don't have it all the way down, so I want some sun to get in here, but I'm hoping to shade it out a little bit with some of these vines. So those are more of the yard-long beans over there. They're just sprouting up. I wish I would have started them sooner, because like these are already starting to attach and they're gonna grow up the side, and then they grow really huge, long. They're not truly a yard long, but they are seriously probably about a foot long bean. Once they mature, they grow these like green bean pods that are huge. They're bigger and fatter than green beans, but they're long and prolific, and they grow well in the summer in the hot tropical weather. So this one I need to pull it over here. See, it's starting to grow onto the other plant. I want to train it to grow onto here, so just pull it over here and let it wrap around the trellis. So hopefully it'll like hold on there. So that's about it, I guess. There's not a whole lot that grows in the summertime, and it's really too hot to be out here much in the summertime anyway. I like to take the summers off from gardening for the most part. So this is about all I'm growing right now. I do have some black-eyed peas growing out front. I'll do another video out there of my raised beds and show you those. But pretty much in the summertime I just take off and go to the beach. I'm getting ready to go to the beach today. And then I did want to say I have these are pigeon peas. I'm gonna plant these out front. They turn into like a big bushy, almost like a small tree. Yeah, it's more like a big shrub, a big bush. And they have peas that grow in pods, and they're a nitrogen fixing plant. So, and they can withstand hot tropical weather. So I'm gonna plant some of them out front. And then in here I've got some more sweet potato slips that I'm gonna plant in those fabric pots. Got a few. I started these slips from sweet potatoes that sprouted inside, and then I just pulled off the sprouts and put them in water until they grew roots, and then I planted them in these little pots, and then I'll transplant them into bigger pots when they get a little bit bigger. So that's about it. Not a whole lot grows during the summertime in Florida, but there are other things that do grow that I'm not growing, like okra is a common thing to grow during the summer. It can withstand the heat, and all kinds of tropical vegetables and fruits can grow in the summer. But in Florida, summer is basically a tropical environment. So anything that would grow in the tropics can grow here in the summer usually, but then we'll end up getting a freeze, or cold weather in usually December and January. So it's really just for the summer. Anything that can live and produce for a few months during the summer that's tropical, you can grow here. So but the traditional crops that you would grow up north in the summer don't do well here. We have to do that in the spring, and then it's over, and then it's a tropical season for like 3 or 4 months, and then we transition back to our fall gardens in like September, October. So that's all I've got growing right now, and I'll do another video of out front. Oh, and I did want to say, as far as tropical vegetables and tropical plants that you can grow in the summer, a good resource for that is a place called Echo Farms. They're in Fort Myers, and they grow a lot of tropical vegetables and plants, and I'll put a link to their website in my description, because they're a really good resource for different tropical plants that most of us have never heard about. That's how I actually bought these amaranth greens from them. I think I forget where I bought the callaloo. I think maybe Baker's Creek I bought that. But I bought some of my tropical vegetables from Echo Farms website, and they just have a lot of information as well, so I'll put a link to them. And I guess that's it. Have a lovely day.